I'd like also ask a second question. Um, favorite military history places to visit, inspiration for future pilgrimages, and secret gems that you have discovered.
Personally, have visited very, very few locations. I can highly recommend the Imperial War Museum in London.
Yeah.
London. I was there and I was there with a friend who is not so much interested in military history, and he also said it's was one of the best museums he ever saw. So
Agreed.
this was fucking awesome. Then of course the two which I visited, the one in Slovenia in Puka, and the the am Wurzenpass in Austria, the bunker museum. So besides that, I actually don't know anything if I'm not mistaken. I plan to visit a lot of museums in the upcoming months, or a lot of some, because usually don't like museums, because if I don't know too much, I need to be really well informed, because all the information that is usually in a museum is not enough for me. And if I don't know enough about the stuff, I can't really relate. From my personal experience from the free museums, I would prefer the bunker museum, because you just run around. And also my friend said basically it's a playground for adults. And I think some people on the video commented the same thing. It's like playing around, running around. It's kind of weird because it's all weapons, but it has this exploring aspect. So this is probably closest you can come to Fallout in a museum location.
Okay, and let me add on to this. As far as London is concerned, one place you should have visited, but apparently you haven't, was the Royal Air Force Museum in Hendon, which is just north of London. As a military aviation buff, I visited it and was basically like a child that found himself in a chocolate factory. It was amazing. I mean, so many incredibly rare aircraft, including some of my favorites, like the only surviving Hawker Typhoon in the world, alongside a cutaway of the Napier Sabre engine, and so many incredible exhibits: a BF-109 G2, a Kawasaki Kai 100, just incredibly rare exhibits that you just don't find anywhere else, and it's just such a massive concentration of those rare warbirds that is just impossible to stop drooling throughout the whole trip, particularly if you are an aviation buff like myself. So that I can add to my list of recommendations. And also, if you ever plan on visiting Warsaw, are two museums that you can visit that I can highly recommend. And the first one would be the Warsaw Museum of Polish Military Technology. That's the official name. Uh, Amazing exhibits ranging all the way from the Middle Ages to basically the 1960s, 70s. So you can get anywhere between a knight's plate armor, beautifully intricate, incredibly detailed piece, and they have like dozens of those things, all the way up to a MiG 21. And it's a big museum, so you really, really, really need to get cracking in order to be able to even make it during the opening hours in order to be able to visit everything. It's almost impossible, and they have some very rare exhibits from Polish military technology, which are fascinating. And also, they have another building at Powsińska Street, which has some of the rarest tanks that you can possibly see, including one of the two IS-3s or three IS-3s that were ever imported to Poland in the 1950s to be evaluated by the Polish military, the communist Polish military. So that makes it an incredibly interesting exhibit for any Westerner to come to Poland, because you just find things that you don't see in the West. You don't just see IS-3s in your average military museum. Okay, so following that, we have a question from Andrew. Question one: has being a big-time YouTube star directly gotten you laid? It's a bit of a change of gear, but I think it's a relevant question.
No, so far not directly, not at all, but I think indirectly it will in the long time because basically I found what I really love to do, and it changed my life way to the better. And well, if you have purpose and focus, from my past experience, I can tell you, I know politics will get you later. When I was active in politics, I first understood what the term sex in politics means. I was really motivated back then, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, in the long run, it will get me laid indirectly, I think, because I know the stats on the demographics, and I think Chinglish has 1.9% female audience, and I think I have 1.8 or 1.7.
Ooh.
So
Okay, second question from Andrew. Regarding the Panzerfaust, a word which sounds awesome to a US English speaker. Covered raw numbers in the video, but based on soldiers' accounts, were they frequently employed for other uses like firing into fortifications, buildings, vehicles other than tanks, rocket jumping to capture the flag? What was the favorability from soldiers' accounts? Did they love it or say things like, those are junk, it just took 5 shots to take out a Soviet motorbike? I think isn't far from the truth given how Soviet motorbikes are built. I've seen some of them in person.
I actually can't give you a qualified answer on this. I read the comments, and a lot of people said they were used for anti-personnel, anti-vehicle, anti-fortification use, and everything. But I didn't read any accounts, and the stuff I read about was mostly the technical data and the production data, and also yeah, and the other book was also very focused on that part. This is the point. I usually have a very narrow scope when I do my videos, and I read rather few pages, but usually I read them a few times to get everything correct. And with this also leads to better retention, so that I build up more knowledge meantime. So as far as I know from the many comments, yes, they were used basically for everything, but I have to find a proper source on this, because Germany in the Second World War, where I found the initial information, doesn't cover that in that regard. And the other book which I got, which was referred to them, also went into the production and the development. And there was mentioned that they intended to use a Brandfaust, so a burn faust or burn fist. And there were some problems that sometimes tanks weren't really destroyed, but they never finished it in that regard. But the actual use, I can't remember, they were not specific. It was rather short. And the one book, or very thin book, which covered more of the Panzerfaust itself, well, had also, I think, very limited data and also was of limited quality. This also, I'm very, when I get certain books, usually on the technical stuff, they are mostly correct. But if it's like that was a low quality publication, and I'm usually quite very, I take everything with a pinch of salt, and I usually don't include it in the video if I don't know from other sources that it's probably correct. So I think I didn't even read the other stuff in that regard. So I will probably do a second Panzerfaust video at one point, because I want to do, if I get the cost of the for the anti-tank guns, and especially anti-tank ammunition, and the Panzerfaust, and some production details, then I could make a cost-benefit analysis. And of course, also I will do anti-tank tactics, and this will also probably cover these aspects a little bit more, and maybe another Panzerfaust video where I talk specifically how it was used, maybe, or something. Then I find a proper source on this, because it's this is not a topic usually military historians deal with, because it's too, well, low level, not in a negative way, but they're usually not really concerned with that part. And people that cover that are usually more in the technical stuff, or more like amateurs, which sometimes produce excellent quality products, but sometimes you have to be very, especially there's quite always a fascination with Germany, the Second World War, with the Nazis, with the SS and all, and the Wehrmacht. So it's always better be sure than sorry in that regard.
Well, as far as the fascination is concerned, we have a couple of questions about that coming up. I can already see in the Reddit section we have a few questions about that specific thing, and also one other observation I'd like to make. It's incredibly fascinating if you think about it. If you look at the use of the Panzerfaust and how it basically served as a prelude to today's handheld anti-tank, anti-infantry, anti-personnel, anti-vehicle weapons that you see today, like the Carl Gustav, which was first designed in '48, and then you have a slew of other things. Like in the '70s, the Soviets made a big deal of introducing handheld rocket-propelled grenades with a flamethrower function and used them in Afghanistan. Now you have all sorts of anti-bunker weapons that you can basically buy off the shelf if you're a government, of course. Unless, of course, you're a Somalian warlord, in which case you just go to Ukraine or another post-Soviet country, pay someone a bribe, and just some of those. But I just find it incredibly fascinating how, in many ways, World War II served as a prelude to today's thinking about handheld infantry weapons, particularly ones that are such as heavy hitting as the Panzerfaust was.